Every year, E3, Gamescom and other such events are a great time for gamers. At these events, we get announcements for new games, we get gameplay reveals, we get updates on existing games and much more. All these events generate a lot of hype and excitement among the fans, but at the same time, there is also a negative side to all of this, which is disappointment, misunderstandings and misconceptions. You see, every time a game is announced, most people don't really know much about it and they form an opinion about how the game might be. But then when the actual game is released, it is different from the vision that the fans might have had, and then this leads to disappointments. So in today's video we will learn exactly how you can rise above all of that noise. There are many ways to actually cut out all the false narrative and find the real truth behind most games. In this video we are majorly going to look at Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, but that's not the only game we are going to discuss. We will also take a look at Marvel's Avengers, Cyberpunk 2077 and God of War. We are going to learn exactly why these three games are going to blow your mind and what exactly is God of War's connection in all of this, because this game has already been released. And later in this video I'm also going to clear up some misconceptions regarding Dragon Ball Kakarot. So without wasting any more time, let us begin. Starting off, let me ask you a question. What is one factor that makes or breaks a game? Is it the publisher or is it the developer? If you said developer, then you are absolutely correct. You see, publishers such as Bandai Namco are simply taking the game and selling it. They are responsible for the PR, for the sales and marketing of the game. Ultimately, it is the developer who is the soul of the game. How a game is going to play, how the gameplay is going to be. Will it run smooth? Will it have good animations? All of that stuff that truly matters actually depends on the developer and not the publishers. So in terms of DBZ Kakarot, it depends on Cyberpunk 2 rather than depending on Bandai Namco. But that's not all. There's more. You see, Cyberpunk 2 is a company and people in a company come and go all the time. Developers are nothing but people who work at a company. So what happens if, for example, half the people who work at Cyberpunk 2 change their job and they start working at Arc System Work instead? Wouldn't the staff of Arc System Work completely change and then result in different games? Yes, sort of. Let me explain this to you using an example of a very popular game and one of my favorite franchises, which is God of War. You see, God of War was one of the most popular game of 2018. It even won Game of the Year award. One of the things that God of War was highly regarded for was its gameplay, especially the Leviathan axe. One of the key person who worked as a system designer on the game's mechanic for this axe was Vince Napoli. Vince and few members of his team worked on the gameplay mechanic of recalling the axe for almost 5 years. Yes, this specific mechanic of the game was being worked on for 5 whole years. Sure, at the beginning of the game's development, they knew what they were going to do, but even months before the game's release, Vince and his team was still tweaking and making changes to this game mechanic. When working on this feature of the game, even Vince and his team was surprised to see some unexpected results, such as the axe hitting the enemies while returning to Kratos. These type of things is something that a developer can only learn with experience and also with trial and error. I will link to his blog post where he talks about all of this axe and its mechanic in detail in the description below. Check it out later, it is actually quite interesting. It gives you a detailed account of how exactly this feature works in the game, and it also gives you sort of a behind the scenes of the game development. But moving on, now that Vince and his work was done on God of War at Santa Monica Studio, after the release of God of War, what did Vince do? Well, actually he was recruited by another developer named Crystal Dynamics. And what is Crystal Dynamics working on right now? They are working on the new Avengers game. Vince has over a decade of experience in combat design. He worked on God of War for many years, and now he's working all of his decades of experience over to the Avengers team. Are you starting to notice where I'm going with this? Thor and his hammer in Avengers plays very similarly to Kratos and his axe. So even before the release of any gameplay or even a visual trailer for Avengers, I already knew what to expect from this game and what to expect from Thor's gameplay. But keep in mind, this is not to say that just because Vince is working on the game, it is going to be amazing or it is going to be like God of War. No, this simply means that knowing how Vince works on this game, you know what you can expect from the gameplay of about the Avengers game. If you liked the gameplay of God of War, chances are you're probably going to like the gameplay of this Avengers game as well. And this is exactly what is happening with other studios as well, whether it is Arc System Works, Cyberpunk 2 or DIMS. The reason why Dragon Ball FighterZ looks the way it does is because the staff that they recruited and have for that project was very experienced in certain aspects, which helped them turn 3D to look like 2D. Vince Napoli has his experience and skill with combat design, and developers at Arc System Works have their 2.5D game model, and Cyberpunk 2 has similar standout skills as well. The developers of Cyberpunk 2 has decades, and I mean decades, of experience with animations, cinematics, storytelling, cel shading and much more. The sum total of all of their skills is a perfect recipe for a game like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is what will bring out the best in this game once it is released. Their experience and skills with cinematics are so great that at times their cutscenes can be better than even the anime itself. So DBZ Kakarot might be retelling the Z story, but I wouldn't worry too much about it because Cyberpunk will adapt that Z story in such a way that you've never ever experienced before. And that is not all. Every developer year after year not only utilizes their standout skills, but they also improve upon it. Let's take for example Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is made by CD Projekt Red, who is also developing Cyberpunk 2077 right now. CDPR released Witcher 3 in 2015 and it was a really great game. It had tons and tons of great stuff, but one of the standout skills that CDPR has is world building. Their open world design is so amazing and so well done, with so much attention paid to little details that it's crazy. For the next 10 seconds, I want you to take a look at this clip from Witcher 3 and tell me what you notice. So, what did you notice? I'll tell you what I noticed. I noticed the NPCs. Every single NPC in this area is worked on with so much detail that he almost feels alive. These NPCs are not just standing there, but they are talking, they're moving, they're doing different things. They're talking in a way that it almost feels like every single character here has a story to tell and they are unique. This is what makes an open world game feel alive. This skill is only one of the things which made Witcher 3 such a massive success, and as expected, CDPR are improving upon that skill of theirs and they are bringing it over to Cyberpunk, where the NPCs again feel alive. If you watch the gameplay for Cyberpunk, you will notice that all the NPCs in even this game feels so unique. They are doing different activities and they are making this open world feel real. So what does all of this means in terms of DBZ Kakarot? This means that Cyberpunk 2 is not only going to deliver on their strength that they attained over decades from the Naruto Storm series, but they will also improve upon it. The animations will be better, the cel shading will be better, the gameplay mechanics are going to improve, and much more. With that being said, let us move on to clear some misconceptions regarding Kakarot. Ever since day one, the biggest, and well, not even a criticism, but the biggest negative stuff that I've heard about Kakarot is that it is the same DBZ story all over again. People want something new, but they are getting the old DBZ story all over again, and that's off-putting to them. You see, this is not really a thing to worry about. In most Dragon Ball games, when you get the Z story all over again, you basically get to experience the main fights, the main battles. You start off with a battle against Raditz, and then you directly move on to the Saiyan saga, then you move on to the Frieza saga, and then Cell saga, Majin Buu saga. Kakarot doesn't do this. You don't just start the game and you fight Raditz, then Vegeta and Nappa. In Kakarot, the story of Z is adapted in much more authentic way. When was the last time you played a game which had you visit the afterlife, or the King Kai's planet, or let you drive around in a car for that driving lesson episode? Exactly. You see, people want something new, but they don't realize that DBZ Kakarot is something new, which is why this retelling of Z Saga is not really a concern for me. The next big misconception is that DBZ Kakarot is like Xenoverse. Well, it's not. As simple as that. Anyone who got to play the game at E3 or Gamescom will tell you the same thing. It may look like Xenoverse in the first place because it is in 3D, but the game is very different. And you might be wondering, How is the game different? Well, it's not just the gameplay that makes Kakarot different. You see, the main goal of the developers is that they're constantly trying to make it an authentic Dragon Ball experience. Most other Dragon Ball games simply don't do that. They focus on the fighting of this Dragon Ball world and they forget about everything else. Though fighting is a huge part of Dragon Ball, but it is not the end of all means. Making this game into an authentic Dragon Ball experience is why they included things such as the Nimbus in the game. You get to live and immerse yourself in the Dragon Ball world, and this is what sets this game apart from all the other Dragon Ball games. And remember that this is also a very faithful representation of Z with original arcs here and there. Remember that Akira Toriyama himself is involved in the making of this game, and we will get to see some stuff that never actually made it to the original manga. The newly revealed past member of Ginyu Force, for example, and there's going to be much more of that stuff. Another way that Kakarot is different from other Dragon Ball games is that it is an RPG and not a PvP. Every battle you play in PvP is player versus player, which is mostly fair. You choose a character, you get similar amount of health, you get similar amount of time, similar types of moves, and this makes the game feel very balanced, which you can say is good in a way, but it's not authentic to the Dragon Ball experience. Enemies in Dragon Ball are not at all equal in power. Goku and the others at times feel the overwhelming odds when they fight against these powerful enemies. This is where Kakarot is different being an RPG, because it can give you a glimpse of how it might be to face overwhelming odds against powerful enemies during boss battles. Almost no Dragon Ball game that exists today has done things this way. And last but not the least, most Dragon Ball games are about fighting and nothing more. Kakarot is different because it allows you to experience things outside of battles, things which we see Goku and the other characters do in the series, such as eat enormous amounts of food, explore the world, drive a car, meet different people, and much more. So I hope this cleared some of the misconceptions and answered the main questions you might have had about this game. But moving on, let me say one more thing. After hearing me talk about this game in this video, you might be thinking that, oh, Ken loves this game, there is nothing about this game that Ken dislikes or worry about. Well, that's not true. I did have my own share of worries regarding this game, some of which are not resolved by the way, and some still exist. My worry, however, are just different from most of the people. I'm not worried about the game covering the Z saga because I know it won't be an issue and the game is going to be fun regardless. I'm not worried that the game looks like Xenoverse because I know it plays a lot different from Xenoverse. So those are not my worries. My worries mainly lies in two things, and that is replayability and side activities. These two things are actually interconnected. You see, being a single player game, it's really important that the game is replayable. Otherwise, it's going to die out really quick. Even though a game could be amazing, but it is going to die really quick if it is not replayable. I don't want that to happen to this game. I don't want to just play the game once and then forget about it a month later. In order to make a single player RPG game like this replayable, it needs to be full of side activities and side quests. Witcher 3, by the way, absolutely nailed this aspect of development. The side quests in Witcher 3 are not just as good as the main plot, but at times they are even better than the main one. If the side activities are treated with the same level of love, with the same level of dedication and hard work that the main story is, then the game becomes this unstoppable force which is going to be remembered for years to come. But I'm not saying that Kakarot doesn't have replay value. I'm just saying that currently we don't know exactly how much replay value it might have, exactly how many side quests will there be, and that's my only worry about this game. In the past, when there was not much known about this game, one of my worries was budget. I thought that Bandai Namco would provide limited funds to Cyberpunk 2 because it was their first Dragon Ball game. I thought that Kakarot was simply a test game for Cyberpunk 2 to simply test the waters and see what they can do with this franchise. But no worries, that is not true. Bandai and Cyberpunk 2 aren't going all out with this game. It is not just a test for them, it is their next big thing. There are things that I sadly cannot say yet, but trust me, there are surprises in store when it comes to this game. You'll be surprised and impressed more and more as we get closer to the release date. And actually same is going to be true for Cyberpunk as well. If you are someone who loves RPG or open world games which are filled with little details and characters who you're gonna love for the years to come, then Cyberpunk is definitely something you wanna look forward to. And if you are someone who loves God of War or gameplay similar to God of War, Tomb Raider, then Avengers might be something you might want to look forward to. This brings us to the end of the video, but before I go, a few days ago I actually asked on Twitter for people to tell me if they have any worries or questions regarding DBZ Kakarot, and I would answer them. Originally, I was gonna answer all of those things at the end of this video, but sadly we got some really good questions there and I really want to take my time to answer them in a separate video. If I answered them here, the video was going to be extremely long. There were some really great questions such as why is this game not covering the Dragon Ball portion of the story and why is it not covering the Super part of the story. I'm going to answer all of those questions in the next video, and if you have some questions of your own, let me know in the comments below. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, share this video around. It will really help us grow this community. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.